Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this very kind invitation. When we prepared the agenda with your colleagues and with Carl, I was asked to say a few words about digital strategies in universities. Just for you to understand, I'm professor in computer science at the University of Strasbourg, and I was in charge in 2009 of the digital strategy of this university. And then later on, I was called to the Ministry of Higher Education to work on the digital strategy for higher education in France. And in this digital strategy, we had an important project on the MOOC platform, and I'm now running this MOOC platform and the organization which is called France Université Numérique. Okay, so please feel free to interrupt, to ask questions. I don't know if that's what you are expecting, so I'm really here just to discuss and share with you. Of course, when we talk about digital strategies, there are many components of it, from the very technical one till what you provide for your learners, what you provide for your students, for your staff, for your international visibility, and so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to write down a document here where I go from bottom to top, okay? Of course, one main issue in all universities is the infrastructures that you should provide. Your students come with devices. They expect to be able to go on internet easily. They expect to be able to work when they are on campus. So you really must have a very good network. And I believe that that's probably here, as it was in France, that's the very first step where we started working quite a few years ago. Of course, in the last 10 years, the issues of Wi-Fi connection, the importance of having lots of hotspots has arisen in many universities. It's obviously probably the same in your university. The other issue, very technical, is what do you have to host your information system, your applications? So what are your servers? Are you starting to think cloud? Are you starting to think virtual machines? All those technical issues that change a little bit the way we organize technical support in universities. Of course, it doesn't go without a computer room for the student, but also probably to a strategy of bring your own device. Bring your own device is the abbreviation of this here. The students will come on campus. They will have their own phone. They will have their own laptop. They will probably be able to use them, including on campus. So how do you manage to have both rooms for them to work on computers when they have to, and probably strategies to develop the idea of them be able to work on campus with their own devices. I also believe that there is a strong issue when you talk about digital technologies about how do you transform the buildings? How do you renovate buildings? What is a library nowadays? In France, there is a lot of issues about, and I know it's the same in many European countries, we don't talk about libraries anymore, we talk about learning centers. How do you change the way students come to library? How do you change the way teachers and researchers come to library? Then probably don't come only to look at books, because most of the books, they are able to see them online anyway. So they are coming to work together, they are coming to have a safe place to work late, to work early, to work during lunch. I mean, all these issues of how do you recreate these learning spaces, the former libraries, and make sure that there are good opportunities for everyone in the university to be willing to come there. Of course, there are also issues about Fab Lab, living labs, all these sort of labs where you want to train the student to innovate, to practice, to do different things that was not really something that everyone was concerned before. Okay, and sorry. Okay, if I'm now moving up and looking at all the information system and the digital services that you want to provide, of course you first have the support functions. you have to have good finance information system, good HR information system. You have to have your logistic and property access information system. You want to be able to know where are your rooms, what are the material in this room, how you can book a room for class, things like that. There is, of course, very important for the researchers and for the student as well, the document management system, the system that runs your libraries. And then if you go up and think about what's going on the campus life, then of course you probably, that's what we try to do in Strasbourg, that's what we try to do in France, to think student-centric oriented. I must confess that a couple of years ago, when you were talking about how you follow the student life on campus, you were basically talking about how do you register the student, how do you make sure that they get grades, how do you make sure that they get a paper with a degree at the end. Nowadays, I think we should think more as what are the curricula, how do you organize the curricula, how the curricula will change over time, how you will be able to bring flexibility in the curricula. All this should be correctly implemented in your information system. And of course, the issue of the student. And we really think that we should be student-centric. And the student, you are going to know about him even before he becomes a student and he takes a registration card. You are going to learn about the student when he will be at the end of high school and he will probably looking for curricula in your university, willing to come to university. So how do you help him to understand what is your organization, what studies you provide, what are these studies for, what are the objectives in terms of professional development these studies are. So really, when I'm saying before, during, and after, that the idea that the student is going to be part of your system even before he's a student, when he tries to see if he wants to join your university, of course, during his studies, and very importantly, after his studies. We're talking about alumni here, but we're also talking about the fact that each of your students will have to come back someday in your university or in another university or in another training organization to have continuous education. Because anyway, the job he's doing nowadays, today or tomorrow when he gets out of your university, will probably be completely different in 10 years from now. He may seek for a job that doesn't exist. So continuous education is very important. So really the issues of carrying the student from when he's a young kid, I mean, before coming to university, till when he comes back to get continuous education. Of course, very important learning management system. You want to provide good learning management system to both your students and your teachers to help learn better, to give a document online, to a forum to discuss with the student and things like that. And of course, I put it here because there was no room. It's not exactly campus life centered on the student. It's more the issues of researchers, teachers and researchers. How do you provide them good infrastructure for research? How do you manage to carry on with the lab that you have? What information system do you have in place to work smoothly with your labs? Of course, one of the important issues nowadays is digital resources. And you probably have to think, and you probably already have thought, of a whole organization to produce digital resources. Your students expect the teachers to not only give lectures, but also to produce material that they will be able to look at and to review before the exam and help them to learn through the learning management system. So what is the production that you have to produce resources? These resources will become big and big and big, so the indexation issue is important, the storage issue becomes important, and of course broadcast issues are important. So how do you manage all this with appropriate team in your management, learning management system and stuff like that? And then, of course, the top part is how you have good accesses. So what is your university portal? Of course, when I'm talking about university portal, I'm also talking about the faculty portals inside this university portal. How do you organize the information? How do you provide information for prospect students, for companies, for all the world that is interested in what you do in your university. This is for the outside world, but in the inside world on your universities, the issue of having a good virtual management environment so you can provide efficient collaborative tools for students, for teachers, for researchers to work smoothly together seems to be part of a digital strategy. And I don't know if it's easy to read. The vertical stuff here says we have to be careful to align everything and to make sure that we have good tools to supervise, to report, to have indicators, and to have a business intelligence on top of everything that will help you to really manage the university, manage the indicators, and see how efficient the tools that you put in place are efficient or not. If we are talking about, in my university, we had for a very long time an infrastructure strategy, an information system strategy, and when we started to think about a digital strategy, we thought of really something more broad and something more centered on the student. So nowadays, the most important issue for all universities around the world, in my opinion, is how do we change learning and teaching using digital technologies? And how do that for a better efficiency, for better success of the student, for better employability of the student. So teaching and learning with digital technology in this new digital world is probably something very important. So of course, the issues of transforming the curricula, how do we come from face-to-face traditional on-campus curricula to blended learning curricula? How do we put blended in our curricula? How are some courses done using, for example, your virtual learning management system, so you don't teach the main class anymore because you use part of the blended? How do you flip the classroom? All these issues of changing the pedagogy. And of course, very important, the issue of online learning, especially when you focus on not only, I don't know how we say that in English, initial education. How do we say that in English, Carl? I mean, the education that you provide for an 18-year-old student. You know? Tertiary education? After 18. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this tertiary education where you get your end of high school degree and then you go to university from 18 to 23 or 4, you get your initial education. Lifelong education is a very crucial issue nowadays for those students from today who will come back in a couple of years, for all those workers who have to have new competencies to fit the new job, to fit the jobs that are in great demand in many different areas, and for continuous professional developments on a broad way. When you start talking to teachers about teaching using digital technologies, then it changed completely, and probably Carl is going to be much more relevant than me on this topic, but it changed completely the way you prepare your teaching, okay? As a professor for many years, I was preparing my classes in my office at the library and going in front of the students, exactly what I'm doing here, and talking, and then answer a few questions and then go back home. But when you have digital technologies to face with, when you have to produce, let's say, good videos, when you have to provide interesting exercises to your students, when you have to change many things in your pedagogy, you cannot do it alone because you don't have all the competencies and because it's extremely time-consuming. So, in my opinion, one of the most important issues if we want, as a university, to help our teachers to move forward in this direction is really to reinforce the support team, instructional designer, community manager, video expert, web designer, all those teams that will help the professors to create these new material that they will use with their students on campus or that they will use on online training. In France, this is a crucial issue. I don't know how it is here, but training the teachers is not something that we do so well at university level. And if you want a professor to transform his pedagogical practices and go a little bit online or do a little bit of flipped classroom or things like that, then you have to train him. I don't know how it is here, but I must confess that in France it's very difficult because teachers, researchers, I mean, professors in universities, they teach and they do research. But what is very important for their career is doing good research, because that's the way they will get promotion. I don't know if it's the same here. So training is a big issue, but another very big issue in terms of helping the teachers to move forward in this direction is how do we recognize the innovation in the teaching practices of a university professor. How can we get him some incentive? How can this be part of his career? These are very important issues, and in France, these are extremely difficult political issues, even today. Okay, then I put there quite a few questions I had in mind because I had to face them when I was in Strasbourg and when I was later on at the Ministry of Education. Of course, when I draw this picture with all these different boxes, then it's one way to see it, but then the perimeter that you want to choose in a university is whichever you need. Maybe some of the steps are already very well in place, so you probably have to work on different topics. One of the most difficult points I had to face in Strasbourg is how do you manage a project like that? How do you set up a good governance? There is a word which I wasn't familiar as an academic with. I mean, it's a word that comes from, companies who come to consult you. That's sponsorship. And I wasn't really aware when we started our project in Strasbourg how important this is, if you want to succeed in a project, to have a real sponsorship and at the good level of the university. Because if setting up a big transformation, even if it's on a subset of topics, it takes time, it takes will, and it goes against tradition in the university. It goes against what we do in our everyday life. So if there is no strong sponsorship that keeps helping you to move forward on this project, that probably it's going to be difficult. And of course, such a project is difficult to manage for a university because you are going to change the rules, you are going to change the way people work, you are going to change what you expect from your academic staff in the university. So probably having good committees to guide the project, to have experts involved, not only your good IT guys, also the final expert, the one who will use the system, the one who will use what is produced. And that's a good way to involve the community. Planification of this project is very tricky because lots of the projects that we start, they are, quite long I mean, the time between you start and the time when it's finished, it's long. It's months, maybe 2 to 3 years when you have some big projects. So planification is very important. And if the project is a long project, if you don't have small step that shows that something is getting out of the project, which I would call a quick win. This is also something that comes from consultant firms. Let's have quick wins. If you have a 2 years long project, make sure that after 6 months, something is out that shows a small progress, and then something else a couple of months later. Otherwise, the community is going to be despaired because they have the feeling that nothing moves on. Very, very important issue. I must say we didn't succeed that well in Strasbourg. It's change management. Change management is absolutely important. I mean, how do you help your colleague in your university to understand that this project is important, that this project is for the best, that this project is going to bring something new for them, and that this project cannot be done without them. And when you start to design one given project, then you put around the table those who will get interest in the project at the end. But those persons will, I mean, they told us that in Strasbourg. Well, the way it works now is good. Why should we change? And that's the whole idea of how do you help people to understand that it's going to change for the better, it's going to be a long journey, but at the end, we are going to listen to them and provide good solutions that fit their needs, and it's going to be probably better for them at the end. But it's much more easier to say it than to do it. And of course, one of the difficult issues that I had to face in Strasbourg was that you have to think user-centric. Why do we do a project? We don't do it for the IT department. I don't know if there are IT department people here. We do it for the student. We do it for the staff. We do it for good reasons. And these reasons are, you know, usage-centric, user-centric, student-centric, etc., etc. And my last point is, are there possibilities to share among universities? Are there possibilities to share, let's say, some bricks of information system? Are there possibilities to imagine a new solution for the student that could be implemented in the cloud and that could be shared among universities? All these questions, in my opinion, are quite important, especially if you think at a national level, when you want to have possibilities to report, to have a clear picture of what's going on in the university. And that's probably something that is also part of the whole picture. That was all I had to say. I was supposed to speak for a quarter of an hour, so I believe I had a quarter of an hour or something like that.
Yeah, we still have time, but thank you so much for showing this very good architecture of how you actually started with your project. Perhaps, can you please explain us what kind of project was that at your university? Is it, because you're mentioning project from the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, we had a very specific situation in Strasbourg in 2009. In Strasbourg city, till 2009, there were 3 universities. Maybe some of you have had colleagues there. So we had a university in science, a university in law and accounting, and a university more around art and humanities. And so there was a plan starting in 2000 saying we should merge. So we had a couple of steps. In 2015, it was agreed, voted in all the boards of these 3 universities that we would join the 1st of January 2009. And so that was a tricky situation because, of course, we have 3 different universities, different rules, different information system, different ways to manage lots of things. So in terms of the digital strategy was for us a very good opportunity to bring people together and say, since we are building a new university, let's bring together and make sure that we create something valuable, clear, and etc., etc. So we had topics on the break of the information system. You had 3 HR systems. Fortunately, it was the same technical solution, because in France we have a national organization which provide bricks of the information system for university, HR, finance, etc. So, but we had these 3 bricks, we had to merge them. The way everything was parameterized was different, so we had to do all these things. So this was one of our first topic. A very other important topic was the question of learning management system, because we were definitely bad at that time. Some faculties had tools, some of other faculty had other tools. What was the big issue for the university? As we wanted to provide a very good virtual learning management system for all the universities. So we had 9 months discussion with everyone. Everyone had its idea, because of course those who had Dokeos wanted to keep Dokeos, those who had Cloudline wanted to keep Cloudline, those who had Moodle wanted to keep Moodle, and some had something that has been created in a university. So for 9 months we put working group together, we checked all these solutions, and we finally decided to go to Moodle. So it was a very important issue there. There is a big project on the learning center that is still under construction. We started a project on the student part of the information system, and I must confess we failed. So this is difficult. Well, we had other projects, but, well, altogether we had 50 projects over the last 4 years of the...
Well, thank you so much for the additional explanation. Maybe somebody else would like to ask immediately something from the public. I'm sorry, I used the opportunity to that I was here to pose the question. Please, Professor Popovic.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for a very insightful presentation. Could you explain a little bit better what you meant by the importance of sponsorship?
When you are going to define a set of projects that will be part of a digital strategy, then you will have to find money to run those projects. You will have to make sure that the board agrees on the project, and you will have to make sure that the people who work in the university, they will be part of the project. Because if at a given, at the political level, you have great ideas, but if you cannot make sure that the university is willing to work with you on these great ideas, then it won't work. And the course of any project is a difficult course. And there are many showstrap, I forgot the name in English. There are many, way to fall and fall and fall again. What I mean by sponsorship is, at the highest level in the university, to have people who will say, this is worth it, we decided for it, yes, it is difficult, yes, this is a bad time, because when you have this curve that says you start a project and everything perfect, okay, and then it's going like this and everyone is despaired, and then finally it starts working, and then you have this sort of curve going back up. So when you are in this bad timing here, and all the projects I have been running in Strasbourg at one point or another have been in this bad timing. Then if you don't get a very strong support from the president for your colleague saying, this is a bad timing, but we will do it, we will succeed, this is normal, then there will be people to say, okay, it doesn't work, let's stop it. And then there will be decisions taken too early that say, let's stop the project. It's a very, in my opinion, it's very difficult because you have at the same time to make sure that you run a change management process, otherwise people will not agree to work on the project, and make sure that in bad time there are high-level people who still believe this project, even though it's a difficult time, it's going to be successful, it's going to be for the best of the student, for the best of everyone.
So you mean the support of top management?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I must say that in Strasbourg, if I didn't have the support of the president, probably we wouldn't have done as much as we did.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, this bring your own device sounds nice, but when students bring to you something like Pi computer and Blueberry and say to you, we have computer $20, $20 each, and we would like to program this in assembler. What's happened to me last year? Mm-hmm. And you have to think about thinking about new education of training of trainer, as you say.
Yeah,
that brought new brand from Great Britain. You know this Pi, Blueberry action in middle schools in Britain. Yeah. So that you have to be prepared for this. Fortunately, it was in private sector, and next week we have a couple of them, dozen of them, and starting teaching this Internet of Things, because PC is not enough, these cells are not enough, these devices are a little bit in way in cloud technology out of time, maybe.
So I understand that you work in computer science and that the students wanted to work with these new devices. When I was talking about bring your own device, I wasn't really talking about bring your own device to create on your device, but bring your own device because when you come on campus, if you have to look at your schedule for the next 3 hours, then you can go to the learning management system or to the virtual environment and then have your, in which room do I have to go in 2 hours' time? Or can I go to on the Moodle platform, on the other learning management system, to check the PowerPoint that the professor from yesterday put there, and then I will be able to ask questions, and then I will be able to look at the next quiz or stuff like that. I was more talking about what a regular student can do to use the resources of the university without going in a computer room because he has his own device. What you are talking about is extremely challenging, but it's more focused on computer science and computer technology departments. But it's a tricky question, I agree with you.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation, and I hope we already implement some things you mentioned and something it is in the future to be accomplished. But I think that one of the main problems, which I don't know how could be solved, maybe you can help us, what about funding and financing? Money is one of the very important issues to do a project and to finish it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've unfortunately no answer for you to this question. When we did this in 2009 in Strasbourg, you know, we were in this very particular time, and we knew that if we didn't have a very strong digital strategy, then we would be lost because these 3 former universities will still live in their own faculty, in their own places, and so we were lucky that the board decided that it was such a strategic issue for the new university that we got money on that. But you are absolutely right. It needs money to, even if later on whatever you have done may save money, you have to start with putting money on the table to work first.
No more questions. Thank you, Catherine, so much.